The sea breathed, endless and unbroken. It sighed against the rocks and sloshed through tide pools, rolling its salt breath across the jagged stones of the atoll. For once, there was no storm clawing at the horizon, no boiling wall of thunderclouds. The sky stretched pale and clean, so wide it seemed to curve into infinity. The light of Nerith Seven's twin suns shimmered on the water until the ocean became a sheet of hammered glass, dazzling, merciless, eternal. On the highest rise of stone, a column of smoke stabbed skyward. Thick, black, defiant. It billowed from the heart of a fire built taller than any storm surge, a bonfire of driftwood, dried kelp, and scavenged wreckage that Elias had dragged across the sands for weeks. It was not warmth, not cooking flame, not comfort. It was a signal. Elias crouched near the blaze, face shadowed and streaked with ash. His scarred hands fed broken planks into the fire, each piece vanishing into hungry light. He was gaunt from months of lean rations, but still broad, shoulders bowed with strength and labor. The tattered remains of his uniform clung stubbornly to him, patched with rope and woven kelp fibers. Every movement carried the economy of a soldier, methodical, practiced, deliberate. He wiped sweat and soot from his forehead, squinting into the glare above. Smoke bled upward in thick bands, dark against the perfect sky. It felt obscene, unnatural, a wound cut into the heavens. If anyone was out there in orbit, beyond the glare of suns and sea, they would see it. And if not, then it was only wasted wood. Behind him, the water shifted. Aeyla emerged from the shallows, droplets running down her luminous skin like beads of molten gold. She climbed the rock with easy grace, her small frame barely 3 feet tall, yet each movement controlled, certain. Where Elias looked scarred and heavy, she seemed carved from light, opalescent skin faintly glowing, large golden eyes catching every flicker of fire. Her glow pulsed softly, matching the rhythm of her breath. "It burns strong," she said, her voice carrying the strange cadence of the Veyrith tongue, vowels drawn out, consonants softened. Elias grunted, tossing another piece of wood into the blaze. "Strong isn't enough. Needs to be seen." He jabbed a finger at the endless vault above. Aeyla tilted her head, considering. The glow along her ridges brightened slightly. "The sky remembers," she said. He huffed a laugh, though there was no humor in it. Her words often sounded like riddles, half prophecy, half poetry. But she meant them. And despite himself, he wanted to believe her. They stood together in silence, the roar of the fire blending with the sigh of the sea. Smoke curled, endless, unraveling into the pale dome of the sky. The days had become rhythm. Hunt in the shallows. Mend the shelter lashed to stone. Gather driftwood from beaches that surfaced and vanished with the tides. Always, always feed the fire. The fire was their future. It was a tether to the stars, to rescue, to a chance at leaving this endless water world. Yet it was also a knife's edge. For Elias, it meant hope of returning to Earth, or at least to people. But for Aeyla, she never said it, but he saw the tension in her glow when they worked. She had been cast out, condemned to this exile. Rescue for him might mean judgment for her. At night, when the fire crackled low and the stars spun dizzy above, he often caught her staring at the horizon. Her glow would dim, thoughtful, wary. He didn't ask what she was thinking. He wasn't sure he wanted to know. By the 3rd week, the fire had become a constant column, visible day and night. The winds carried its smoke far into the sky. Elias began to doubt it would matter. Space was vast. Even if a ship passed nearby, would they look? Would they care? That morning, he nearly gave in to despair. His hands were blistered raw from hauling planks. His throat was raw from smoke. The sky mocked him with its perfect emptiness. Then Aeyla froze. She stood on the ridge, golden eyes wide, her ridged crown lifting slightly as though straining to hear something beyond mortal sound. Her glow flared bright, then dimmed in quick pulses, like a heartbeat racing. "What?" Elias asked, dropping the wood he carried. "What is it?" She raised a hand, silencing him. The ocean murmured. The fire popped. And then faint, impossibly faint, he heard it too. A low vibration, not of sea or sky, but of something mechanical. Artificial. A hum. His chest seized. He spun, staring upward. At first he saw nothing. Then, through the thin gauze of smoke, a silver glimmer winked against the blue. Not a bird. Not a cloud. A ship. It grew steadily, resolving from speck to shape. The sun flared against its hull, metal gleaming. Elias's throat closed. His heart slammed against his ribs. His knees nearly buckled beneath him. Months. Months of ocean, of storms, of loneliness, of thinking no one would ever come. And now, steel, engines light. Rescue. Beside him, Aeyla's glow flickered wildly. He turned to her, saw the fear writ plain across her face. Not relief. Not joy. Fear. She stepped back from the fire, her small hands curling into fists. They come, she whispered, voice trembling. Yes, Elias breathed. His eyes never left the ship. They come. The ship circled high above, its shadow sweeping across the water like a second horizon. It hung there, silent, surveying, perhaps scanning the beacon, perhaps calculating risk. Elias waved, shouted, voice cracking with desperation. He lifted his arms wide, smoke wreathing around him. Here, here. Aeyla stayed back, pressed against the rocks, her glow dimmed almost to nothing. She stared up with wide, unblinking eyes, her body taut, as if ready to flee into the sea. At last, the ship lowered, its engines a deep growl that shook the atoll. Spray burst from the waves as it descended, vast and silver, dwarfing their fire, their island, their fragile existence. A ramp unfolded. Figures appeared at its top, silhouetted against the light. Human shapes. Elias staggered forward, breath-breaking. Tears stung his smoke-reddened eyes. He had never thought he would see another human again. But as the figures descended, their weapons glinting in the sun, he realized rescue was never simple. The ocean world held its breath. Smoke curled upward. Fire snapped and hissed. And Aeyla, the exile, stood trembling, her golden glow caught between hope and terror. The Wayfarer had been found. But what would they do with the exile? The hum of engines pressed against the air, a weight that vibrated through stone and bone. Spray whipped across the atoll as the scout ship hovered, its thrusters clawing the sea into froth. The twin suns glared off its hull, blinding, a reflection of steel and order in a world of chaos and salt. Elias staggered forward, heart in his throat. He wanted to run, to throw himself against the ramp that had lowered from the belly of the vessel, to beg, to plead, to laugh like a madman because after all this time, after months of storms and hunger and salt in his lungs, he was not alone. Human voices carried over the engines. Sharp, commanding, clipped through helmet comms. 6 figures descended the ramp in formation, their boots striking metal with soldiers' rhythm. Armor gleamed, gray and white under the suns, visors darkened against the glare. Rifles hung across their chests, disciplined hands resting close to the triggers. They were not explorers, not traders, not the soft faces of civilians. They were soldiers. Elias froze at the foot of the ridge, smoke curling around him. The fire popped and hissed behind him, its smoke a scar cutting the sky. His throat ached with sudden dryness. He raised both hands slowly, palms open. "My name is Elias Kade," he shouted over the roar. His voice cracked, raw from smoke and salt. "Lieutenant Commander, Colonial Fleet. ID number." He faltered, realizing how long it had been since he'd said it aloud. I was on the Artemis. We crashed. Months ago. The squad halted at the base of the ramp. One raised a fist, a silent signal. Helmets turned, taking him in. One figure stepped forward, their commander, armor marked with stripes. The visor hissed open with a pneumatic snap. A human face emerged. A woman's face, weathered and sharp, cheeks scarred by a thin white line. Her eyes were gray steel, her jaw square with authority. She studied Elias without blinking, without expression, as though measuring him against some internal ledger. "Lieutenant Commander," she repeated, voice even, clipped military. "Elias Kade, Artemis. Report." The words nearly broke him. He swallowed, hands trembling. Crash. Ocean world. Alone. Survived. His gaze darted back toward the ridge where Aeyla crouched in the shadow of the fire. Her glow had dimmed almost entirely, her small body pressed into the stone, as though the light itself could hide her. His chest tightened. "Not alone," he corrected. There's someone else. The commander's eyes narrowed. Someone? Elias hesitated. The smoke stung his throat. He glanced at Aeyla, her wide golden eyes staring at him, silently pleading. She was all light and fragility in that moment, but he knew her strength. He knew how many storms she had fought at his side. To him, she was no less vital than the fire, the water, the air. But to them? He forced the word past his lips. Yes. A native. The squad shifted slightly, a ripple of tension. One muttered into their calm, the commander's eyes sharpened like a knife's edge. Show me. Elias climbed the ridge, every step heavy. The soldiers followed in formation, rifles angled low but ready. He wanted to spread his arms, to shield her, to keep their gaze from cutting her down. Aeyla rose as he approached. She was trembling, but she did not step back. She stood small and straight, her opalescent skin glowing faintly gold against the black smoke. The wind tugged at the woven kelp strips around her shoulders. Her eyes were huge, unblinking, fixed on the humans approaching with their weapons and their armor and their sharp, merciless faces. Elias stopped at her side. This is Aeyla, he said, his voice steady though his pulse thundered. She saved my life. More than once. I wouldn't be standing here without her. The commander halted a few paces away, visor raised, gray eyes narrowing. Her lips pressed into a hard line as she took in the sight of the alien woman barely 3 feet tall, glowing faintly like a living lantern. One of the soldiers hissed softly under their breath. Another muttered, "Damn." The commander spoke, her tone flat. "Identify yourself." Aeyla tilted her head, her ridged crown catching the sunlight. Her voice, soft but steady, carried the music of another world. "I am Aeyla of the Veyrith. Banished. Exile." The word fell heavy, cutting the air between them. The soldiers shifted, uneasy. A murmur crackled across their comms. The commander's face did not change, but her eyes flicked to Elias. "Exile," she repeated. "That makes her dangerous." "No," Elias's voice was sharp, fierce. He stepped forward, placing himself between them. "She's not dangerous. She kept me alive. She's Veyrith," the commander cut in, her voice cool as steel. "And if she's been banished here, her own people wanted her gone. You know what that means." Elias's hands clenched at his sides. His scars itched with heat. "I don't care what it means to them. I care what it means here. Without her, I'd be bones on a reef. She's no threat. His voice broke. He swallowed hard. "She's with me." For the first time, the commander's expression shifted, ever so slightly. Her gaze flicked between the human soldier and the glowing alien exile standing shoulder to shoulder. A puzzle. A problem. Something unexpected. "Noted," she said finally. She turned to her squad. "Secure the site. Prepare for departure. And keep your eyes on both of them." Aeyla's glow dimmed further. Elias reached for her hand. She let him take it, her fingers small and trembling in his scarred palm. For the first time since the fire was lit, Elias felt the burn of fear stronger than hope. The soldiers spread out across the atoll, scanning with handheld devices, their rifles gleaming. 2 dragged supplies down from the ship, crates of rations, medkits, a portable comms relay. Technology. Civilization. Everything Elias had dreamed of. But all he could feel was the weight of their stares on Aeyla. She sat near the fire, knees pulled to her chest, her glow faint as dying embers. Her golden eyes never left the soldiers, tracking every movement, every glance. She had lived her whole exile alone. Now the world had returned, and it looked at her like a weapon, like a disease, like a problem to be solved. Elias knelt beside her. "It's all right," he murmured, though he wasn't sure it was. Her voice was quiet, almost lost beneath the crackle of the fire. "They do not see me. They see the mark my people left. I am exile, nothing else." He tightened his grip on her hand. "You're more than that. You're alive. You're here. With me." Her gaze flicked up to him. Her glow warmed, faintly. "And if they take you away?" The words cut him open. He didn't answer. That night, the fire still burned, but its smoke was lost against the glow of the scout ship's running lights. Elias lay awake on the stony ground, staring up at the steel hull that hovered like a second moon. He should have felt relief, joy, triumph. Instead, his chest ached with unease. He turned his head. Aeyla sat a few feet away, her glow faint and soft, eyes fixed on the ship. Not in wonder, not in hope, but in dread. The fire crackled low. The sea sighed. And Elias knew that rescue was only the beginning of the fight. The ship swallowed them. The ramp clanged beneath Elias's boots as he stepped upward, each stride echoing in his bones. The air was sharp with the scent of fuel and ozone, a metallic tang that set his throat aching with memory. He hadn't breathed this air in months, the air of steel corridors, recycled and stale, humming with the vibration of engines. Civilization. Humanity. But behind him, Aeyla hesitated at the base of the ramp. Her small frame glowed faintly against the thruster's light, golden eyes wide and wary. She had never walked on steel, never breathed recycled air, never seen walls built by human hands. The ocean had been her cage and her kingdom. This was something else. "Come on," Elias said softly, extending a hand. For a heartbeat, she didn't move. The soldiers shifted impatiently around her, their rifles angled low but not lowered. Then Aeyla placed her hand in his, her fingers trembling. Together, they climbed the ramp. The hum of the ship deepened as the hatch sealed behind them. The ocean's roar vanished, cut off by walls of metal. Aeyla flinched at the sudden silence, her glow flickering nervously. The corridor stretched ahead, narrow and sterile, lined with conduits and control panels. Lights flickered overhead, casting a harsh, white glow. To Elias, it was familiar, the architecture of fleet ships, practical and precise. To Aeyla, it was a prison. Her golden eyes darted from wall to wall. No horizon, no sky, no escape. One of the soldiers muttered, "By the stars it glows." Another laughed under their breath. Elias shot them a glare sharp enough to silence. The commander led the way, her boots ringing on the deck. She did not look back. Quarantine Bay. Now. The quarantine bay was a sterile cube, walls smooth and featureless, air scrubbers humming. A single glass wall separated the chamber into two sections, one for them, one for the soldiers. A scanner arm extended from the ceiling, its lens blinking. Inside, the commander ordered. Elias stepped forward, pulling Aeyla gently with him. The door sealed behind them with a hiss. Ayla's glow dimmed further. She pressed close to him, her small body trembling against his side. The scanner arm lowered. Blue light swept over them, from head to toe. It beeped, chirped, hummed, calculating. Human life signs confirmed, a synthetic voice intoned. Subject, Elias Kade. Stable condition. Malnutrition. Surface trauma. Recommend medbay treatment. Elias exhaled shakily, relief washing through him. Then the scanner turned to Aeyla. Its lens glowed brighter, the beam running across her small form. Her glow fought the light, shimmering gold against sterile blue. The machine buzzed, hesitated. Non-human physiology detected, it said. Subject, Veyrith. Subspecies, variant. Status. Exile marker confirmed. Elias stiffened. Exile marker? The commander's voice was cool. Their people tattoo it into their DNA. A permanent brand. Means she's banished for cause. Aeyla flinched, her glow flickering faintly, as though the word itself had struck her. Her eyes dropped to the deck. She's not a threat, Elias snapped. She's an exile, the commander cut in. And that means her own kind cast her out. You think we're going to trust her when they didn't. Elias's fists clenched. He took a step forward until his reflection burned in the glass wall. You don't know her. You don't know what she's done. All you see is a label. Without her, I'd be dead. That's all that should matter. The commander met his gaze, steel-gray eyes unblinking. We'll see what matters. After the tribunal. Hours blurred. Medics arrived. Elias was pulled into the medbay, for lines in his arms, scanners mapping every scar, every broken bone. The sting of antiseptic replaced the sting of salt. Food was pressed into his hands, real food, warm, rich, spiced. He ate mechanically, as though in a dream, but his mind was elsewhere. Through the medbay's glass partitions, he caught glimpses of Aeyla, alone, sealed in a containment chamber. No bed, no comfort. Just a sterile floor and humming walls. She sat cross-legged in the center, her glow faint as dying fire. Her eyes never moved from him. He pressed his palm to the glass. She mirrored the gesture, her small hand glowing against the barrier. No words passed. None were needed. Later, the commander appeared again. Elias sat upright on the medbed, tension coiled in his chest. "What happens now?" "You'll be transported back to the fleet," she said. "You'll be debriefed. Given leave. Reassigned, maybe." "And Aeyla?" The commander's jaw tightened. "She'll be considered." Elias's pulse hammered. Considered for what? Return to her people. Or permanent exile elsewhere. Depends on what the tribunal decides. She's Veyrith, and that alone makes her a matter above my pay grade. "She saved me," Elias growled. Over and over. "Doesn't that count for anything?" The commander's gaze was steady, impassive. "You're alive. That counts." He stood, fists clenched, scars burning. "If they try to take her from me," her eyes sharpened. "Careful, Lieutenant Commander. You've been alone a long time. Attachment makes you blind." "No," Elias shot back. "It makes me see clearer than I ever have." For the first time, something flickered across her face. Not agreement, not sympathy, but recognition. She gave a short nod, then turned on her heel. "The tribunal convenes in 3 days." The door hissed shut behind her. Elias stood in the sterile silence, breath shaking. He turned to the glass wall where Aeyla sat glowing faintly in the containment bay. Her golden eyes locked on his. Between them was glass. Steel. A world of judgment. But he pressed his palm to the barrier once more. And once more, her hand rose to meet it. The ship hummed. Stars drifted past the viewport, endless and cold. For Elias, it was home. For Aeyla, it was another cage. Between worlds, they waited. The stars vanished. One moment they shone sharp and cold through the viewports, infinite, merciless. The next, they were gone, swallowed by roiling clouds as the scout ship bucked and shuddered. Alarm klaxons wailed through the corridors. The deck pitched beneath Elias's feet, throwing him against the bulkhead. "Storm front incoming," a voice barked over the comms. "Gravity shear. Hold on." The hum of engines roared into a desperate scream. The ship tilted, then dropped, the gravity plating groaning in protest. Loose equipment skittered across the deck. Elias staggered, catching himself on the frame of the medbay door. Beyond the glass, Aeyla clutched the floor of her containment cell, her glow flaring bright with fear. She pressed herself flat, her ridged crown twitching as if straining against unseen currents. She wasn't looking at the humans rushing through the corridors or the red lights strobing across the walls. She was listening to the storm outside. She whispered something he couldn't hear. The words were lost in the thunder of engines. And then the ship hit the ocean. The impact was a hammer blow. Metal screamed. Water surged against the hull in a deafening roar. The floor bucked, pitching Elias into the wall. The ship groaned as though the ocean meant to tear it apart piece by piece. "Seal all compartments," the commander's voice snapped over the comm. "Damage control teams to decks 2 through 5. Hull integrity compromise." Elias staggered to his feet. Through the glass, Aeyla had risen too. Her glow burned steady now, her eyes locked on his. She mouthed one word, deliberate, urgent. "Water." He didn't need to ask what she meant. The ship wasn't built for prolonged ocean impact. If they couldn't stabilize, the sea would finish what the crash had started months ago. Within minutes, the corridors were chaos. Crews sprinted past with sealant packs and welders, shouting status updates into comms. Steam hissed from ruptured conduits. The air smelled of ozone, oil, and panic. The commander intercepted him near the medbay, her scarred face hard, jaw tight. Kade, stay out of the way. We don't need another body clogging the corridors. You're taking on water, Elias shot back. He pointed through the glass wall, where Aeyla stood pressed against the barrier, her glow pulsing like a warning beacon.
She knows this planet.
She can help you. The commander's eyes snapped to the glowing figure in containment. Her mouth curled in a humorless smile. Help or sabotage? Not happening. Elias's voice dropped, sharp with fury. If she wanted me dead, I'd have been gone 100 times over. She knows the sea. You don't. Let her out, or you'll lose this ship. The commander's jaw flexed. For a long moment, the only sound was klaxons and pounding boots. Then she hissed through her teeth. Damn it. Fine. But she stays with you. You answer for her. Elias didn't hesitate.
Deal.
The containment field snapped down with a hiss. The door slid open. Aeyla stepped out, her bare feet silent on the steel deck. The crew nearby recoiled instinctively, rifles tightening in their grips. She ignored them. Her glow burned bright and steady, golden eyes unblinking as she looked to Elias. Where? He asked. She closed her eyes, ridged crown lifting slightly. She inhaled through her sharp nose, listening. The storm roared through the hull. Water pressed against steel. She tilted her head, then opened her eyes. Starboard. 2 levels below. The commander barked orders into her comm, a team assembled instantly. Elias followed, Aeyla close at his side, their hands brushing with every stride. Soldiers kept rifles half-raised around them, as though waiting for the exile to bare hidden fangs. The corridors narrowed, darker, slick with condensation. The ship groaned like a living beast under pressure. When they reached deck 4, water was already knee-deep. It surged cold around Elias's legs, numbing, dragging at every step. Aeyla moved as though born to it. Her glow shimmered across the surface, turning floodwater to molten gold. She pressed a hand against the bulkhead, then pointed sharply. There. A seam split down the wall, jetting salt water like a knife wound. The soldiers scrambled forward with sealant packs, spraying polymer foam that hissed and hardened under pressure. The leak slowed, but Aeyla shook her head. Not enough. More cracks below. You cannot see them. I can.
She dove.
For a moment she vanished beneath the surge, her glow trailing like fire into the depths of the flooded corridor. Elias's heart stopped. He surged after her, but before he could plunge in, her golden light reappeared, bursting upward. She surfaced, gasping, her small chest heaving. She pointed again, sharp, commanding. Below. Seal deeper.
Now.
The soldiers hesitated, glancing to the commander. The commander's face hardened, then snapped. Do it. They dove, guided by her glow. Foam hissed beneath the water. The jetting spray slowed, then stopped. The groan of the hull lessened. The storm outside still raged, but the ship no longer drowned with every wave. The commander exhaled, relief flickering briefly across her scarred face. She turned to Aeyla, dripping and trembling but unbowed, her glow steady. You kept us afloat. Aeyla's golden eyes narrowed. Her voice was soft, but it cut like glass. I keep you alive. As I kept him. She nodded toward Elias. The commander held her gaze for a long, taut moment. Then she nodded once curt. Noted. Hours later, the storm had passed. The ship floated battered but intact, engines humming weakly as they rose back toward the stars. Damaged crews slumped exhausted in corridors. The floodwater drained away. The alarms finally silenced. Elias sat in the medbay, soaked and shivering, a ration bar clutched in his hand. Across from him, Aeyla sat cross-legged on the deck, her glow faint but steady, drying strands of kelp still woven through her tunic. She looked impossibly small in the wide, sterile room, yet she had carried them all through the storm. The commander entered, armor damp, scar catching the overhead light. She studied them both. The tribunal will hear of this, she said. How you survived the storm. How she helped. Elias leaned forward, voice low. Not helped. Saved. The commander's eyes flicked between them, sharp and measuring. At last, she nodded once. We'll see what that buys her. She left without another word. Silence returned. The ship hummed, stars reappearing in the viewports. Aeyla leaned her head lightly against Elias's arm. Her voice was quiet, weary. They saw me today. Not Exile. Not Brand. They saw me. He looked down at her, his chest tight. His hand covered hers. They'll keep seeing you. I'll make sure of it. She lifted her gaze, golden eyes soft and steady. And if they make you choose? The question hung between them, sharp as the storm's edge. Elias tightened his grip, scarred fingers trembling. Then I already have. The tribunal loomed. The choice had begun. The ocean let them go reluctantly. From the viewport, the world of Veyrith, 7 filled half the sky, an endless whirl of blue-green waves writhing beneath storms that never slept. Lightning stitched the clouds, white veins across a bruised horizon. Waves rose like mountains, crashing against one another in an endless duel. It had been cage and sanctuary, torment and salvation. Elias pressed a hand to the glass, his reflection superimposed over the endless sea. Months ago, he had cursed this world. Now, as the scout ship's engines roared and the horizon began to shrink beneath them, he felt an ache he hadn't expected. Beside him, Aeyla stood silently, her glow dim and steady. Her golden eyes reflected the storm. She pressed her small palm against the glass near his. It holds us no longer, she whispered. Her voice was soft, reverent, yet tinged with grief. She had been exiled here. The ocean had been her punishment, her tomb. And still it had been hers. The ship shuddered as the thrusters fired harder. Gravity pressed them down. The roar of the engines grew into a scream, drowning out even the storm. The clouds thickened, lightning hammering against the hull as if the planet itself sought to keep them. For a moment, the ship pitched violently, groaning like a wounded beast. Crew shouted in the corridors, securing seals, bracing bulkheads. Then, silence. The stars broke through. Black sky opened around them, velvet and endless. The storm fell away below, blue-white thunderheads glowing faintly far beneath. The ocean became a vast swirling sphere, light glinting from the sun's edge across its restless surface. Elias exhaled shakily. His hand remained against the glass. We made it. Aeyla said nothing. Her gaze lingered on the shrinking planet. Her glow pulsed faintly, rhythm steady as a heartbeat. Departure was not celebration. The crew did not cheer. They moved with precision and tension, voices clipped, eyes sharp. The storm had bloodied them. The tribunal loomed. The scout ship was only a courier, a link in the chain. Their true destination lay ahead, the fleet. Elias knew the rhythm too well. Fleet discipline was a cage of its own. Order hammered over chaos, judgment sharpened into survival. He had worn that cage his whole life. But now, with Aeyla at his side, every clang of a hatch, every barked order, felt like a noose. He watched the crew's eyes as they passed. Some glanced at Aeyla with suspicion, hands twitching near their rifles. Others stared openly, curious, unsettled by her glow. A few avoided her altogether, as if even looking was dangerous. And always she walked steady, head high, glow unwavering, gaze fixed ahead. She did not shrink. She did not cower. But when her hand brushed his, her fingers lingered, seeking silent anchor. They were confined to a cabin. Small, metal-walled, barely enough space for 2 bunks, a table, and a viewport. Aeyla perched on the lower bunk, legs crossed, glow casting faint shadows across the ceiling. Elias sat opposite her, ration pack half-eaten in his hands. The hum of the engines filled the silence. The stars drifted beyond the viewport, cold and eternal. They stare, Aeyla said suddenly. Elias blinked. What? The humans. Their eyes follow me. Suspicion. Fear. She tilted her head, golden eyes studying him. Why do they not trust? He sighed, setting the ration down. Because you're different. Because they don't know you. People fear what they don't understand. Aeyla's glow dimmed, her expression unreadable. They will not listen to what I am. Only to what I am not. Elias leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Then I'll make them listen. She regarded him for a long moment, then asked softly, "And if they make you choose? Between them and me?" His chest tightened. He had no answer he trusted his voice to carry. Instead, he reached across the table and took her hand, small and warm in his scarred grasp. Her glow brightened faintly, pulsing with his heartbeat. "We'll face it together," he said at last. The fleet appeared 2 days later. They came out of the slipstream into a black sea scattered with stars and steel. Warships drifted in precise formation, massive hulls bristling with cannons, engines glowing faintly. Carriers stretched like cities across the void, hangars yawning open to swallow or release squadrons of fighters. Patrol craft moved like fish in a school, weaving through the darkness. Elias's breath caught. He had grown up in this steel ocean, sworn oaths beneath these banners. But after months beneath open sky, the sight felt alien. The scale was suffocating, the symmetry too precise. Beside him, Aeyla pressed her face to the viewport, golden eyes wide. Her glow flickered uncertainly, awe and unease colliding. "So many," she whispered. "Machines. Metal stars." Her voice was small, almost reverent, yet Elias heard the tremor. For someone who had only ever known ocean and exile, this was more terrifying than any storm. The calm crackled with orders. The scout ship angled toward the fleet's heart, the flagship resolute, a fortress of steel that dwarfed even the carriers. Its hull gleamed with light, its engines burned with power. The tribunal waited there. Elias's stomach nodded. Docking was a blur of hissing clamps and mechanical voices. The hatch opened onto a hangar vast enough to swallow cities. Steel stretched in every direction, echoing with boots and engines. Elias stepped out first, hand steady on Aeyla's. Soldiers lined the path, rifles at ease but ready. Eyes followed them. Whispers rippled through the ranks. "That's her, the exile. Glows like a torch. Why is she with him?" Aeyla walked beside him, glow soft, gaze steady. Her hand did not tremble, yet he felt the faintest pressure of her fingers, holding tighter than usual. The commander led them down the hangar, boots ringing. Ahead, a line of officers waited, tribunal escorts. "This is where we part," the commander said quietly. Her scar caught the overhead light. "Kade, you'll be taken to debrief." Her gaze flicked to Aeyla, to Holding. Elias's chest seized.
"No."
"She stays with me." "That's not your call." He stepped forward, jaw set. "If you lock her in a cell, you're making a mistake. She deserves. She'll get her say," the commander cut in sharply. "The tribunal will hear her. That's more than her own kind gave." Elias froze. The words bit deeper than the commander knew. He felt Aeyla's hand tighten in his, heard her breath catch. Slowly, painfully, he released her fingers. She looked up at him, golden eyes luminous in the sterile light. "Together," she whispered. "Together," he promised. His throat burned. The guards led them apart. Hours bled into silence. Elias sat in a debrief chamber, cold and sterile, lights glaring down. Officers asked questions, recorded answers, dissected his survival as though it were a machine. What happened the day he crashed? How had he lived? What had she done? He told them everything. Every storm, every hunt, every fire. He told them how she had pulled him from the sea, how she had taught him to fish, how she had stood beside him when the storms rose. He told them the truth. But he saw the doubt in their eyes, the calculation. And always, in the back of his mind, one thought burned. Where is she? When they finally allowed him to return to quarters, exhaustion dragged at his limbs. But he was not alone. Aeyla sat waiting on the bunk, glow faint but steady. Her eyes lifted as he entered, and relief swept his chest so hard it nearly broke him. He crossed the room in 3 strides, dropping to sit beside her. She leaned into him instantly, small body warm against his side. They asked, she murmured, why I was cast out, why I glowed, why you trust me. His arm tightened around her shoulders. And what did you tell them? Her glow dimmed. She lowered her gaze. The truth. But truth does not always sway those who fear. Elias closed his eyes, pressing his forehead to hers. Then they'll hear it again. From me. From both of us. Until they do. Outside the viewport, the fleet hung silent, steel giants adrift in the black. Inside, two exiles of different kinds held fast to each other. Departure had brought them to safety. But safety was only the beginning of the fight. The tribunal chamber was a cathedral of steel. High, vaulted ceilings arched over a chamber built not for worship, but for judgment. Rows of seats climbed in tiers along the walls, filled with officers in dark uniforms, their insignias gleaming. At the chamber's center stood a circular dais, a ring of light surrounding a raised platform where the accused would stand. Aeyla stood there now. Her small frame seemed impossibly fragile against the vastness of the hall, her glow faint but unbroken. The golden light of her skin glimmered beneath the harsh white beams overhead, casting long shadows across the steel floor. She lifted her chin, crown ridges catching the light, and met the stares of the tribunal without flinching. Elias sat at the edge of the dais, behind a low barrier. His fists clenched, nails digging into scarred palms. Every instinct screamed to stand beside her, but regulations chained him to his seat. He was a witness, not a defender. Not yet. The presiding officer, Admiral Corvin, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, his metals heavy as judgment itself, rose from the tribunal's bench. His voice rang across the chamber, clipped and resonant. This tribunal is convened under Article 12 of the Colonial Fleet Accord. Subject: Elias Kade, Lieutenant Commander, survivor of crash on Veyrith, 7. Subject: unidentified Veyrith exile, name unknown. Elias surged to his feet. Her name is Aeyla. A ripple of murmurs spread through the chamber. Corvin's gaze pinned him like a hawk. You will speak when addressed, Lieutenant Commander. Sit. Elias's jaw clenched, but he sat. Aeyla's golden eyes flicked toward him, soft and steady, before returning to the tribunal. Corvin's gaze turned back to her. You are branded exile by your people. Records confirm your DNA bears the mark. For what crime were you cast out? A silence fell heavy as the sea. Aeyla inhaled slowly, her glow dimming as if bracing against old wounds. For defiance. A murmur rippled again. Corvin's eyes narrowed. Defiance of what? Her gaze was steady. Of my people's decree. They demanded silence. I spoke. They demanded submission. I refused. They demanded a death, and I would not kill. A rustle of uniforms, whispers darting like sparks. Elias's chest tightened. He had never asked the full truth of her exile, she had never given it. But now the wound lay bare. Corvin's expression remained unreadable. So you claim moral refusal. Yet your people saw fit to cast you into exile. Why should we see you differently? Aeyla's glow pulsed faintly, golden against steel. Her voice was soft, but it carried to every corner of the hall. Because you already have. Without me, your scout ship would lie beneath the storm. Without me, your soldier would lie dead on the shore. Without me, you would not be here to judge. The words hung like thunder. Corvin's eyes flicked toward Elias. Lieutenant Commander Kade. Stand. Elias rose, spine straight, every nerve burning. You were stranded for months with this exile, Corvin said. State clearly, was your survival dependent upon her aid? Elias's throat tightened. He looked at Aeyla, small, glowing, unyielding. His voice rang like steel.
Yes, she saved me.
More times than I can count. Every storm, every hunger, every moment I wanted to give up, she was there. I would not be alive without her. Corvin's gaze sharpened. And, do you vouch for her character? That she is not a threat to this fleet, to our people? Elias's voice was steady, unbreakable. I do. With my life. Gasps rippled. The tribunal stirred. Aeyla's glow flared faintly, her golden eyes widening just slightly before softening into something luminous. Corvin raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. His gaze bored into Elias, hard as stone. Then answer plainly, Lieutenant Commander. Are you compromised? The chamber froze. Compromised was the word for soldiers who had bonded too closely with non-humans, for loyalties tangled, for judgment clouded. It was accusation wrapped in steel. Elias's pulse hammered. His chest ached with the truth pressing against his ribs. He could lie, claim distance, deny the bond. It would buy Aeyla's safety at the cost of their truth. Or he could speak, risk everything, every rank, every oath. He looked at her. Aeyla's eyes met his, golden and unflinching. Her glow shimmered faintly in the sterile light. In that moment, he remembered every storm, every fire, every night on the shore when silence had been enough. He remembered her hand in his, small and steady, holding him back from the brink. His voice broke the silence.
Yes.
I am compromised. Because I love her. The words hit like a storm surge.
Gasps. Shouts.
Officers leaning forward, jaws tightening, whispers darting like lightning. The chamber roared with scandal, disbelief, anger. Aeyla's glow flared radiant, brighter than it had ever been. Her eyes widened, shimmering with something fierce and unspoken. Corvin raised his hand again, voice cutting through the uproar like a blade. Order. Order. The chamber stilled reluctantly. His gaze locked on Elias, sharp as a hawk's strike. You understand what you've said? What it means? You admit to emotional compromise with an alien exile? Elias stood unyielding. I do. And I would say it again. The silence that followed was a storm in itself. Hours passed. The tribunal recessed. Officers filed out in murmurs, eyes sharp, voices low. The chamber emptied, leaving Elias and Aeyla under guard, confined to silence. They were escorted back to their quarters. The doors sealed behind them. Only then did Elias sag, exhaustion hitting like a wave. His chest heaved, heart pounding. Aeyla stood before him, her glow soft, trembling faintly. Her golden eyes searched his face, wide with wonder and fear. You spoke, she whispered. He nodded, voice raw. I meant it. Her small hand rose, fingers brushing his cheek. Her glow warmed his skin. You gave them a truth they could not ignore. He caught her hand in his, pressing it to his lips. Let them try. I'll fight for you. I'll fight them all if I have to. Her glow brightened, golden and fierce. She leaned into him, forehead against his. Then we fight together. Outside the viewport, the fleet drifted in perfect order, cold as judgment. Inside, in their small steel cage, warmth burned brighter than the stars. The alarms came at midnight. Elias woke to the shriek of klaxons and the pounding of boots in the corridor. Red light strobed across the cabin walls, painting Aeyla's golden glow in fractured shadows. Her eyes snapped open instantly, head ridges flaring, listening as though the metal itself spoke to her. What is it? She whispered. Elias swung off the bunk, heart pounding. He didn't need the voice on the intercom to answer. Contact. Hostiles inbound. All hands to battle stations. The words were ice water down his spine. He had heard them 100 times before, but never with her by his side. The ship shuddered as if struck by a giant's fist. Loose equipment rattled from shelves. Aeyla staggered, but Elias caught her arm, steadying her. Another shudder followed, heavier, closer, the deep metallic groan of shields straining. Through the viewport, the stars erupted in fire. Darts of plasma streaked across the void, blue-white lances slicing through the black. Explosions blossomed, brief suns that painted the fleet in flame. Enemy ships, sleek, black silhouettes bristling with spines, dove into formation, their weapons carving light through space. Elias's breath caught. Corsairs. Aeyla's golden eyes flicked to him. You know them? Raiders. Pirates. They hit fleets like wolves hit herds. Pick off the edges, scatter the lines, bleed us dry. His jaw clenched. We're their prize tonight. The door hissed open. 2 soldiers stormed in, rifles at the ready. Orders, one barked. You're to stay here, Kade. Both of you. Lock down until the tribunal resumes. Elias stepped forward, fists clenching. You need every fighter you can get. Let me out there. Not our call, the soldier snapped. His eyes flicked uneasily to Aeyla's glow. Stay put. The door slammed shut, locking them in again. Another blast rocked the ship, hurling Elias against the wall. Sparks spat from the ceiling. Aeyla pressed her palms to the deck, eyes closing, glow pulsing. She whispered, voice tight. They will break you, if you stay blind. They are faster, smaller. You fight with steel, they fight with flow. You must see it. Elias crouched beside her, heart hammering. See what? Her golden eyes snapped open, blazing. The pattern. The tide. The next explosion ripped through the corridor outside, plunging the cabin into flickering darkness. The air smelled of ozone and burnt metal. The intercom stuttered with static and screams. Elias knew that sound. He had heard ships die before. He turned to Aeyla, jaw tight. If we stay here, we're dead. She rose to her feet, glow flaring bright. Then we do not stay. She crossed to the door, placing her small palm flat against the lock panel. Her glow seeped into the metal, golden threads racing through the circuits. The panel flickered, hissed, then sparked out. With a groan, the door slid open. Elias stared. How did you? Her golden eyes flicked to him. The sea taught me. Steel speaks if you listen.
He didn't argue.
The corridor was chaos. Smoke curled through flickering lights. Crews sprinted in every direction, shouting orders, dragging wounded. Sparks showered from ruptured conduits. The ship groaned with every strike. Elias grabbed a rifle from a fallen soldier, checking the charge. He moved fast, instincts from years of service snapping back into place. Aeyla followed close, her glow cutting through the smoke like a torch. Soldiers glanced at her as they ran past, some staring in awe, others flinching away. But none stopped them. The ship shuddered again. An impact screamed against the hull, metal tearing. Elias cursed. They've latched on. Boarding parties. Aeyla tilted her head, ridges twitching. I hear them. Claws on steel. Then we cut them off. They reached a junction where smoke poured from a ruptured bulkhead. Shadows moved through the haze, tall, armored figures with jagged blades and spined helmets, their bodies flowing with insect-like grace. Corsair raiders. Elias raised his rifle and fired. Blue plasma streaked through the smoke, slamming into the lead raider's chest. The creature shrieked, stumbling back, its carapace smoking. The others surged forward, snarling. Elias dropped to one knee, firing controlled bursts. 2 raiders fell, writhing. But more poured through, blades flashing. Aeyla moved like water. Her small frame darted between them, glow flaring. She ducked beneath a blade, pressing her palm against a raider's chest. Golden light surged, burning like fire. The creature screamed and collapsed, armor cracking under her touch. Another raider lunged from behind, but Elias was there, rifle but smashing into its helmet, blast finishing it in a flash of blue. They moved as one. Hunter and torch. Soldier and exile. Every motion in sync, forged in storms and survival. When the last raider fell, smoke thick and body still, Elias lowered his rifle, chest heaving. He turned to Aeyla. Her glow pulsed fierce, golden eyes blazing. She looked small in the carnage, but unbreakable. You fight like the tide, he breathed. She tilted her head, catching her breath. And you like the storm. The calm crackled overhead. Boarding parties repelled on deck 3. Casualties heavy. Hull breach contained. A new voice cut in, Admiral Corvin. Hard, steady, commanding. All units regroup. Strike squadrons launching.
Push them back.
Do not break formation. Elias stared at the ceiling speaker, then at Aeyla. Formation will fail. They'll outmaneuver us. Aeyla nodded slowly. Unless you teach them the tide. They forced their way to the command deck. Guards tried to block them, but Elias barked orders with a soldier's authority, scars and ranks still carrying weight. Smoke and fire filled the air, consoles sparking, officers shouting into comms. Admiral Corvin stood at the center, cloak scorched, eyes sharp. He turned as Elias and Aeyla entered, fury flashing. "You are ordered confined." "No time," Elias snapped. He strode forward, slamming a bloodied hand against the console. "You're fighting them like soldiers. Straight lines. Rigid formation. It won't work. They'll bleed you dry." Corvin's gaze burned. "And what do you suggest?" Elias jerked a thumb at Aeyla, standing small but radiant beside him. "She sees their pattern. She knows how they move. Let her guide your fleet." The chamber froze. Officers stared. Aeyla's glow pulsed faintly, golden eyes steady despite the storm of attention. Corvin's voice was low, lethal. "You ask me to trust an exile. An alien." Elias's voice thundered, raw with truth. "I ask you to trust survival. You saw what she did in the storm. Trust her now, or lose everything." Silence. The ship shuddered again, explosions rippling outside. At last, Corvin's jaw tightened. He gave a sharp nod. "Speak, exile." All eyes turned to her. Aeyla stepped forward, glow brightening. Her voice was soft, but it carried across the command deck like a tide rising. "Do not fight them as soldiers. Fight them as sea fights storm. Break your line.
Flow.
Let them chase what is not there, while you strike where they do not look. Move as tide, not wall." Her glow pulsed like a heartbeat. For a moment, silence reigned. Then Corvin snapped to his officers. "Relay her orders. Break formation. Flow like tide." The fleet shifted. On the viewport, the rigid wall of warships unraveled into a fluid spiral, ships weaving and darting like fish through water. Corsairs plunged into gaps, only to be caught in crossfire, trapped in eddies, torn apart by strikes they hadn't anticipated. The fleet flowed, and for the first time, the Corsairs faltered. When the last raider ship burst in flame, the crew erupted in ragged cheers. Officers slumped against consoles, relief and disbelief crashing through the command deck. Admiral Corvin stood rigid, his scarred face unreadable. He turned slowly to Elias and Aeyla. "You kept this fleet alive," he said, voice low but carrying. Ayla's glow dimmed softly, exhaustion pulling at her frame. She swayed, but Elias caught her, steadying her small body against his chest. Corvin's gaze lingered on them both. Then he gave a short, sharp nod. "The tribunal will reconvene. But know this, the fleet remembers deeds as well as words." He turned away, barking new orders. Elias looked down at Aeyla, her golden eyes half closed, her glow pulsing faintly. He brushed damp hair from her brow. "You did it," he whispered. Her lips curved in the faintest smile. "We did it." Outside, the void burned with wreckage and light. Inside, soldier and exile stood together, storm and tide, fire in the void. The battle was over, but the ship still shook as if it remembered. Hull plating groaned in the quiet, cooling from the heat of strikes. Fires hissed in sealed compartments. The corridors smelled of scorched circuitry, metal burned sharp as blood. Everywhere Elias looked, men and women staggered in silence, faces ash-gray and eyes hollow. Victors, but at a cost. Aeyla walked beside him, her glow dimmer than he had ever seen it. Each step looked like it cost her something.
She didn't complain.
She never did. But Elias saw the tremor in her hands, the way her ridges flattened close to her skull. She had poured herself into the fight, and it had saved them. When they reached the quarters assigned to them, still marked by a guard at the door, Elias eased her inside. The door hissed shut, cutting off the hum of boots and orders in the corridor. The room was quiet. Too quiet after battle. Aeyla sank onto the bunk, her golden glow flickering faintly like the last embers of a dying fire. Elias knelt in front of her, searching her face. "You pushed too far," he murmured. Her lips curved in a weak, wry smile. The tide must rise high to move the fleet. He shook his head, brushing damp strands of hair from her temple. His voice came low, ragged. You almost broke yourself. Her golden eyes lifted, meeting his. They burned softly, tender despite exhaustion. You were there. I would not fall. The silence that followed was heavy with everything unspoken. The ship creaked around them, survivors whispered through bulkheads, but in that small steel room it felt like the world held its breath. Elias reached up, his scarred hand cupping her small, glowing face. When I said I loved you, he swallowed, throat tight. I wasn't playing for sympathy. I meant every word. Her glow pulsed, faint but steady. Her lips parted, and for the first time, the words came soft as a tide rolling in. And I love you. The weight of it struck harder than any storm. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead against hers, closing his eyes. For a moment, there was no tribunal, no fleet, no judgment waiting like a blade. Only her glow warming his skin, only her small hand clutching his, only the silence that wrapped around them like safety. But silence could not hold forever. The knock came an hour later, a sharp rap of knuckles on steel. Elias straightened instantly, his soldier's instincts snapping awake. Aeyla rose slower, glow faint but calm. The door hissed open. Admiral Corvin entered. Alone. No guards, no entourage. His uniform was scorched at the collar, one sleeve torn. His silver hair was damp with sweat, but his eyes burned sharp as ever. He looked at them both. Not like an officer sizing up subordinates. Not even like a judge preparing a sentence. But like a man weighing truths too heavy for steel. You saved us tonight, Corvin said. His voice was steady, stripped of command bark. That cannot be denied. Aeyla inclined her head faintly, ridges glinting in the dim light. Elias stayed silent, watching. Corvin's gaze lingered on Aeyla, then shifted to Elias. But survival does not erase truth. You confessed before the tribunal. You've bound yourself to her. And now the fleet has seen her power. That changes things. For both of you. Elias's jaw tightened. If this is where you tell me I'm finished. Corvin cut him off with a sharp shake of the head. You're not finished, Lieutenant Commander. Not yet. But understand this. You've forced my hand. The tribunal will reconvene tomorrow. And what happens there will echo across the fleet. Perhaps across the colonies. A heavy silence settled. Aeyla spoke, her voice low but steady. Your people fear me. Corvin met her golden eyes, without flinching. They fear what they don't understand. They fear your power. And they fear what it means that one of my officers has chosen you. Elias stepped forward, anger hot. She saved your lives. She saved your fleet. And you still talk about fear? Corvin's gaze snapped to him. I talk about truth. You know as well as I do, Kade. Armies are not built on love. Fleets are not held together by sentiment. They're built on order. On discipline. On trust in the line. Not in the heart. Elias didn't back down. Order didn't save you out there. She did. Corvin's silence was long. At last he said, tomorrow, the tribunal will decide whether she stays or whether she's turned over to the colonies as a danger. His gaze flicked to Aeyla. Or worse, returned to her people. Elias's blood went cold. Aeyla's glow flickered, but she stood tall, unflinching. If that is their choice, then it will be so. No, Elias snapped. He turned on Corvin, voice raw. You can't do this. Not after everything. Corvin's eyes softened, just faintly. You think I want this? You think I want to cast aside the one who saved us? But this is larger than me, larger than you. It's about every soul in this fleet. Every colony watching. They will decide. Not me. He turned toward the door.
Paused.
Looked back. You both have one night. One night to prepare for whatever comes. Use it well. And then he was gone. The door hissed shut, leaving the silence heavier than before. Elias paced the room, fists clenched, thoughts roaring like storm waves. They'll tear you apart tomorrow. They'll call you a threat, a weapon, an exile who doesn't belong. Aeyla watched him, calm despite her dimmed glow. Perhaps they are right. He froze. Don't you dare say that. Her golden eyes held his, soft but unyielding. Elias. I have been exiled longer than I was daughter. I have been tied without shore, light without anchor. If they cast me away, it will not be the first time. He crossed the room in 2 strides, gripping her shoulders, his voice breaking. But it will be the last. Because I won't let it happen. I won't lose you. Her glow brightened faintly under his touch, warmth spreading through the steel-cold air. She reached up, pressing her hand against his heart. Then whatever they choose, she whispered, we face it together. The hours that followed were slow and heavy. They sat on the bunk, side by side, silence stretching long. Outside, the ship's hum filled the void, punctuated by the distant groans of repairs. Somewhere in the fleet, funerals were being whispered over comms, names read into the static. The dead drifted between stars while the living waited for judgment. Elias lay back, staring at the ceiling, Aeyla curled against him, her glow warm on his chest. He traced idle patterns across her ridges, memorizing the shape of her, the feel of her. Every touch felt like defiance. You ever wonder, he murmured, what it would be like if we'd met somewhere else? Somewhere not drowning in storms or burning in fire. Her voice was soft. Then perhaps we would not be who we are. He smiled faintly, eyes closing. Storm and tide. Her glow pulsed once, warm and steady. Together. They drifted into uneasy sleep. Morning came too soon. The tribunal chamber loomed once more, steel and shadows, officers whispering in the tiers, the dais blazing under harsh light. Aeyla stood within the circle again, her glow faint but unbroken. Elias stood behind the barrier, fists clenched, heart hammering. The tribunal began. And everything that followed would decide whether storm and tide could remain together, or be torn apart forever. The tribunal chamber was packed. Every seat was filled, uniforms dark as storm clouds under the cold, white lights. Officers lined the walls, faces grim. The air vibrated with whispers, sharp as knives, carrying words Elias could almost make out: alien, danger, compromise, savior. At the center, the dais blazed. Aeyla stood within its circle of light, her glow faint but steady, golden against steel. She looked impossibly small against the vaulted chamber, yet she held herself upright, crown ridges lifted like a crest against the tide. Elias stood at the witness rail, barely a few feet from her, but it felt like an ocean. His fists were clenched so hard his knuckles ached. His pulse roared in his ears. He wanted nothing more than to step across that circle, stand beside her. But the barrier was law itself. Admiral Corvin rose from the tribunal's bench. His silver hair was drawn back, his scorched uniform repaired, but his eyes burned sharper than ever. His voice carried across the chamber, cold as the void. This tribunal reconvenes under Article 12 of the Colonial Fleet Accord. The matter before us, the status of the Veyrith exile known as Aeyla, and the conduct of Lieutenant Commander Elias Kade. The murmur of voices stilled. Silence fell, heavy as judgment. Corvin's gaze turned to Aeyla. You stand accused of being a threat to this fleet, of powers uncontrolled, of loyalty unproven. What do you say to these charges? Aeyla's glow pulsed faintly. She lifted her chin, golden eyes steady. I say I am what you have seen. No more, no less. I saved your soldier. I saved your fleet. If that is threat, then I am guilty. Her voice was soft, but it carried, weaving through the silence like tide through stone. Whispers rippled. Some eyes hardened. Others flickered with doubt. Corvin's gaze shifted to Elias. Lieutenant Commander Kade. Step forward. Elias's boots rang on steel as he crossed to the barrier. His chest ached with every breath. You confess love for this exile, Corvin said, his voice sharp. Do you still stand by those words? Elias's voice was raw, but unshaking. Yes. Knowing the consequence. Yes. Knowing it may cost you rank, career, even freedom? Yes. The word rang like a strike of steel. Aeyla's glow brightened faintly. Her golden eyes shone with something fierce and tender. The silence that followed stretched long, taut as a drawn bow. Then the tribunal's other officers spoke in turn, their voices like waves breaking against rock. She is dangerous. You saw her tear through armor with her bare hands. What if she turns that power on us? She guided us in battle when no one else could. Without her, we would be wreckage in the void. She has no loyalty to our people. She admitted she was cast out from hers. An exile is an exile. She has shown more loyalty than some humans I've fought beside. The chamber seethed with clashing voices, anger and fear, respect and suspicion. A storm without end. Corvin raised his hand, silencing them. His gaze burned into Elias. You are soldier. You know order is the spine of survival. Yet you defy it, binding yourself to her. Why? Elias's throat tightened. He looked at Aeyla, small, glowing, unbroken. Every storm, every fire, every night on Veyrith, seven surged back. His voice thundered, breaking the silence. Because order didn't keep me alive. Love did. Because discipline didn't pull me from the waves.
She did.
You can call it compromise. I call it truth. And I will not deny it, no matter what it costs. The words struck the chamber like lightning. Some officers flinched. Others leaned forward, listening. Aeyla's glow flared brighter, golden light spilling into the cold steel. She stepped forward, crossing the edge of her circle, her voice ringing clear. I do not ask to be your weapon. I do not ask to be your prisoner. Ask only to be seen as I am. Exile, yes. Alien, yes. But not enemy. Her glow spread across the floor, touching Elias's boots like sunlight breaking across water. The silence was total. At last, Admiral Corvin rose fully, his voice carrying like thunder. This tribunal has heard argument. It has seen deeds. And now it delivers judgment. Every breath held. Every heart beat slow. Corvin's gaze swept the chamber, then fell on Aeyla. By the power vested under Article 12, this tribunal declares, you are not enemy of this fleet. Gasps rippled. Aeyla's glow brightened, faint but rising. But neither are you yet ally, Corvin continued. His voice hardened. You are to remain under supervision. No rank. No command. Your presence tolerated, not sanctioned. Your future undecided. Then his gaze shifted to Elias. As for you, Lieutenant Commander Kade, you are guilty of compromise, of placing heart before chain of command. Elias stood unflinching. Then strip me of it. Corvin's eyes narrowed. And yet you saved us. You fought when others faltered. You stood where others broke. For that, your rank remains provisional. Elias blinked, shock flickering. Corvin's voice carried the weight of iron. But make no mistake. The eyes of the fleet are on you both. If either falters, if either threatens the balance we hold, the verdict will not be so merciful again. The gavel struck steel. The verdict was done. The chamber emptied in murmurs, whispers sharper than blades. Some officers looked at Aeyla with awe, others with suspicion, most with both. Elias ignored them all. He crossed the barrier, stepping into her circle. The guards didn't stop him. Not this time. He stood before her, reaching out. She placed her small glowing hand in his scarred one. You're free, he whispered. Her golden eyes lifted to his, soft but unyielding. Not free. Not yet. But no longer alone. Her glow pulsed against his skin, warm and steady. In the vast steel chamber, with judgment still echoing in the walls, soldier and exile stood hand in hand, storm and tide, unbroken. The days after the tribunal dragged like wounded hours. The fleet limped through space, battered but alive. Repair crews clanged through the corridors, welding scars shut. The hum of engines carried exhaustion instead of pride. And everywhere Elias went, eyes followed. Some looked with gratitude, whispers of savior, spoken when they thought Aeyla couldn't hear. Others stared with suspicion, muttering exile, alien, danger. Most simply looked and didn't know what to feel. Elias bore it in silence. But every glance cut deeper than a blade. Not for him. He had carried scorn before, worn scars of command and failure alike. But for her. For the way her glow dimmed slightly whenever those eyes lingered too long. In their quarters, the silence grew heavier each night. Aeyla sat by the viewport, her small frame folded beneath the glass. She would rest her palm against the cold pane, her golden glow spilling faintly across the stars. Elias would watch her from the bunk, words building in his chest but never finding breath. One night, after too many silences, she spoke without turning. "They will never see me," she said softly. Elias sat up. "They saw you save them." "As storm sees tide," she replied, her voice low. "Useful, feared, but not embraced. Not home." Her glow dimmed, shadow falling across her ridges. "I am still exile." The words cut. Elias crossed the room, kneeling beside her. His scarred hand covered her small glowing one against the glass. "Then I am exile too," he said. She turned, golden eyes searching his. "You would cast away your own people?" "They cast me first," he said bitterly. "Every whisper in those halls says it. I'm compromised. Broken. Half a soldier, half a man. They'll never trust me again." Her gaze softened, glow brightening faintly. "You are more than soldier. More than chain. You are Elias." The way she said his name, soft, steady, as though it was a truth larger than stars, broke something in him. He pulled her close, her small body fitting against him, glow warm against his chest. His voice was rough, ragged. "Then maybe it's time we stop waiting for their judgment. Maybe it's time we choose our own." The choice took shape like a tide rising. They spoke of it in fragments, whispers between klaxon drills and repair shifts, not daring to give it words too loud, too soon. But the plan grew. A shuttle, half repaired in the hangar. Supplies left uncounted in the chaos of battle. Star maps Aeyla could read like currents in the sea. Freedom. Not safe, not certain, not sanctioned.
But theirs.
On the night they moved, the ship was silent with exhaustion. Most crew slept, others slumped over consoles, engines humming steady through the void. Elias led Aeyla through the dim corridors, their footsteps soft, shadows stretching long under red nightlights. His pulse hammered, but his movements were steady, trained by years of sneaking through worse. They reached the hangar. Rows of shuttles rested in the half-dark, some scarred, some whole. Elias guided her toward the one he'd chosen, patched but flyable. Aeyla paused at the ramp, her golden glow casting long shadows across the steel. She looked back, eyes lingering on the fleet beyond the hangar glass, ships drifting like weary leviathans, scarred and scarred again. "This was your home," she whispered. Elias stepped close, his hand finding hers. "Not anymore. My home's wherever you are." Her glow flared softly, golden warmth spilling across his scarred hand. She nodded once. "Then let us go." The shuttle's engines rumbled to life, a low growl in the silence. Elias's hands flew across controls, muscle memory blending with instinct. Aeyla sat beside him, glow bathing the cockpit in warm light, her eyes fixed on the stars ahead. The hangar doors loomed. Beyond them, the void stretched endless and black. "Last chance," Elias murmured. "We can still turn back." Her golden eyes turned to him, unwavering. "Storm and tide," she said softly. "Together." He smiled, fierce and raw. "Together." He hit the thrusters. The shuttle surged forward. The hangar doors split open, steel parting like waves. And then they were through, bursting into the void, stars blazing wide around them, the fleet shrinking behind like a chain slipping from broken wrists. No alarms chased them. No fighters scrambled. Perhaps Corvin knew. Perhaps he let them go. Perhaps the fleet was too tired to care. Elias didn't look back. Aeyla leaned into him, her glow warm against his side. Her gaze fixed on the horizon ahead, where stars stretched endless. For the first time, she whispered, I do not feel exile. Elias wrapped his arm around her, holding her close as the shuttle cut into the dark. Then for the first time, he said, voice steady as a vow, we're free. The void swallowed them, not as castaways, not as prisoners, but as wayfarers, storm and tide, hand in hand, carving a new horizon. And the stars opened before them,